Hello, welcome to the programme. I don't think this will make it as a channel because I expect this will be the only thing I ever post. My name's James. I'm the one in the video there, just grabbing a battery terminal. Ian's the bloke with the legs on the other side of that fence. We will meet him later. James, you're going to want to stop doing that and catch the camera. Catch the camera. Oi, pay attention. Oh, you idiot. You missed it. You see, the problem is I don't pay attention to myself, especially when I'm talking to myself from some time in the future. I'll sort that out in a minute. This is GKE 68. It's a Bristol K5G with a Wayman body on the top. It was delivered to Chatham Traction in 1939, so if you were going to school in Chatham in Kent in the wartime period, there's a fair chance you've been on this bus. Now this bus is currently being restored and has been for possibly decades. The job today that Ian and I are going to try and do is see if we can get the Gardner engine started. It hasn't run for longer than I've known this vehicle, 10 years or more. It has been rebuilt, so we're sort of optimistic it should fire up. But I'm expecting a lot of cranking and winding and bleeding of injectors and all that sort of stuff. So I think this could be quite a long video if you're unfortunate. Let's take a look at what we're actually going to try and do. We've got a battery rigged up. Ian's already rewired this. And there's a battery charger on it just to keep that going, so that's just down the left hand side. This thing here is what we correctly term the fuel sucky uppy thing, but some people call it an auto vac. This is basically the fuel pump. It pulls diesel up out of the tank. Imagine a jam jar inside that tin. Vacuum from the engine sucks diesel up out of the tank into that jam jar. When it's full, a float trip empties it into the main tank that you see below. And then it gravity feeds the fuel pump on the engine. We don't want to put fuel in the main tank, and we haven't got vacuum at the moment, so none of that bit will work. But what we will do is chuck some diesel into that tank, and that should get us going. Down here we have the injection pump and the oil filter on the right hand side. We've filled it up with oil, it's all fresh, and that's good, but we don't know if there's any oil pressure. We haven't got an oil pressure gauge in the cab yet. There should be one, but there isn't. So Ian's rigged up an oil pressure gauge so we can just make sure. So the plan is we're going to engage the decompressors, which just hold one of the valves open, and we're going to crank it over and make sure we've got oil pressure before we try and start it. That's the oil pressure gauge that Ian's fitted. To stop this, in theory, all we have to do is push the fuel pump rack over, and that'll cut the fuel off. But just in case it doesn't, I've made some bits of wood, which you can drop over the air inlets, and that should choke it. That might come in handy just in case it starts burning something that's not diesel that we're chucking in it. Let's go for a little walk round. But that's the real radiator off the front of the bus, so we have no water in this. We aren't going to run it for very long, that's for certain. That's the diesel tank down there. I'm hoping that somewhere there's actually a fuel cap for that. I have not seen it, but I'm sure it'll turn up. If you're wondering, this being a diesel, where the vacuum comes from, well, it comes from this thing. This is an exhauster, or a vacuum pump. The vacuum on this thing is used to suck diesel up out of the main tank into the fuel sucky uppy thingy. But also, it's got vacuum assisted brakes. This was built before the age of pressure air brakes. Right, shall we wind this over and see if we can get some oil pressure? Ian's got it decompressed. I'm going to press the button. Which one's the master switch?
I think it's the one nearest the door, but not...
Well, the light came on.
Well, that'd be it then.
Right, you...
Right.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
That starter's still skipping then. We might be fixing that next.
That'll do the thing.
Yeah, right, that's not working. So the nasty clattering noise that you can hear, at the time I thought that was the starter pinion bouncing off the ring gear, but it certainly isn't turning the engine over. We actually cranked this engine very briefly a month or so ago, and it kind of did the same thing and then kind of didn't. So I'm not entirely surprised it's going to cause us a problem today. Now, Bristol K5G, so that means it's a Bristol K-series chassis, and the 5G bit means that it's got a 5-cylinder Gardner engine in. You may have noticed that it was a cylinder short when we had a look at it earlier on. It has a Wayman body on it Wayman were a bodybuilder from Surrey, as opposed to YI Man, which was a bodybuilder from Newcastle. That's rubbish. Don't believe everything you hear on the internet, especially when I tell you it. Now, this bus was saved for a couple of reasons. Firstly, as far as we know, it's the only Bristol K with a Wayman body on it that's left. And the other reason it's a bit special is because it's the only bus from Chatham Traction that still exists. There is another vehicle kicking around, which the trust that owns this also have got, but that was converted to a truck back in the day when it was still running around. So this is the only bus left. Somebody, thankfully, when this thing was about to go to the scrapman, realised this, and it got saved. It went through a few owners. Nobody could really afford or had the time to do anything much with it. Eventually, a charity was set up specifically to look after it and restore it, and they've been doing that ever since. It's kind of coming to the end of that restoration period now. It's mostly screwed together. There's a fair bit still to do. We've got new rear road springs to go in it. The prop shaft's not on it. There's quite a lot of wiring, and it obviously needs to be painted rather than just a grey primer. But we're getting towards a point where we might get this out and about. The way we're going to get around this starter motor problem is to take the back off the starter and very, very firmly press the solenoid in, and that should engage it. Okay.
Right.
Oh, it's getting a bit. It's off the bottom. There you are. So it's coming up.
Right.
Well, that's a good sign. Well, that seems to have maxed out at about 20. What should it be?
It ought to be about 40.
Yeah, you know that out.
How much is it pissing out from all those unions? Because they're not very good.
Well, a little dribble, but not a massive gusher that I can see anywhere.
Oh, so it's probably not affecting it too much, is it?
Oh, hang on a minute. I say that, but the alternator's full of it.
Oh, that's previous.
Well, it sounds like they're not doing too badly. They've got it going round, and they've got some oil pressure, although not as much as we'd like. It's a start, though. Let's go and have a look in the back. Oh, look. Wooden topper. Union Jack colours. So, rear platform, lower deck. It's not very big, this thing. 27 foot long, probably. 7 foot 6 wide. The seats have all been recovered. They're upstairs. We'll see them in a minute. That's the gearbox and the clutch. That fiberglass thing there is the cover that's going on the top, but that will be cast in aluminium one day when we get it to actually fit. The interior's already been painted. All the wood treads are down. So this is the upper deck. And you can see the seat cushions. Well, you can't see the seat cushions because they're all, thankfully, covered up in black plastic. Because if they weren't, Ian and I would make them very oily and dirty. And then up the front we can see across the garage where this old thing lives. Maybe we should try and start this thing up. Or at least start pushing fuel around it and bleeding it and... Okay, are you ready out there?
Okay. Right.
First go to try and start it.
Well,
the solenoid's going forwards, isn't it? Spinning it.
Push it hard.
Oh, there you go.
Disappeared in smoke?
Oh, massive amount actually. A bit.
Right.
I was not expecting that to go that quickly, if I'm honest.
No, I was thinking of that struggle.
Well, that was a bit of an anticlimax almost. It just started. We've got a load of problems now though. The oil pressure's low, that's adjustable, so we'll fire it up and adjust that.
Suspect.
Well, bugger me.
Pissing everything out everywhere. We've got fuel. I think that.
Oh yeah.
There's an oil leak down there somewhere. There's fuel out the bottom of the pump somewhere.
So we've got a few unions to try and tighten up.
Well, I'm going to try another oil gauge on it first.
Okay.
Because we can't run it very long because it'll cook.
Do we want to start thinking about radiator, or do you want to button up some of the leaks first?
We'll see if we got sensible oil pressure.
Okay, I'll live with that. Cool, bloody hell. I knew these things started easily, I wasn't quite expecting it to be that good. We've got oil running down the side of the block and all over the floor. We've got fuel running all over the place. Yeah, we're going to spend a little while trying to get this thing sealed up. Just to prove a point, it does start on the button. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
There we go. So there we go, it runs. Who'd have thought it would have started that easily? Thanks for joining us, I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you again another day. From Ian and I, bye bye. Oh, my damn clock's going. How's a chap supposed to do a voiceover when the clock's dingy?